Hey, welcome back to Aircraft Adventures. I'm Liam Locke, and we're back in the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 edition. And I just don't get it. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't get all the haters out there. I don't get what's not to like. This simulator is really, really good. Now, yes, there are problems with the jet airliners and the modeling. It was horrifically incomplete. I've got a personal issue with one of the premium airports. San Francisco is got its own problems. But if you look past those minor things that are all fixable, right? The level of detail for the buildings, the cities, the runways, the taxiways, the terrain, everything, the street navigation is so good. It's such a step up from what we are accustomed to in FSX, of course, and even in X-Plane. X-Plane did a lot of great things for the level of detail at airports, which I personally appreciated, but this is head and shoulders above. And the downside is, which probably makes it unappealing for some, is it definitely does have some beefy system requirements, which honestly, it impacted me as well. I purposely upgraded my system, put my machine, according to 3D Mark, in the top 10% of systems, according to their recent measurements, and tried to drive this game with 4K resolution with a combination of high and medium settings. On top of that, trying to record to OBS, and as you've seen in some of my prior videos, suffered horribly from render lag, and honestly I didn't realize how bad it was. I'm not an expert in OBS by any stretch, but I have made some changes. I've actually done a little bit of research on OBS, figured out, got some of my settings tweaked here a little bit, changed my play resolution from 4K, right, because I'm using a 2080 Super card, changed my play resolution from 4K down to 2K, if you will. And that has made a dramatic difference. So now I can get a sustained frame rate, great performance inside the simulator, and still leave overhead available to my computer and the GPU to actually do the OBS rendering. So hopefully all the render lag that I've experienced is gone, and this video should be much improved. Much more information than you probably wanted coming here to watch a flight simulation video, but I just thought I would share that because actually I'm pretty excited about it. I'm looking forward to get this video recorded. We don't have the best of weather because I decided today I'm going to fly with live weather. We are sitting at the gate here at London Heathrow International Airport, and today's flight is going to take us to Frankfurt International Airport. Figured I'd go overseas and try a European flight, and that's what we're going to do today. So we are back in the Airbus A320neo with the fly-by-wire simulations A32NX add-on, which again is it's a free add-on, and it greatly improves the modeling and the features enabled inside the Airbus A320. It's bringing it more back in line with what we expect from like payware aircraft, and it doesn't even cost any money. So major kudos to the fly-by-wire folks and what they're doing to make this simulation experience more and more realistic day by day. We're all waiting for the payware aircraft to come out, but in the interim, this makes it possible to fly the jet airliner and have a good time doing it. So they've done tremendous work. So I've done enough talking here right now. Let's go ahead and hop in the aircraft down here at the gate and get things started up. So we'll run through our standard checks. We are in cold and dark. It's about midday right now in, well, that was a little jerk right there. It's about midday here in London, probably about 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Weather's horrible outside, a little bit of rain, completely overcast. We'll just check and make sure engines are off, right? We're in a normal position, landing gear is down, all of that is good. Take a look at the windshield wipers, they are off. Good to go there. Now, one thing I want to check also is I do like to fly with the managed radio comms assist turned on, but you don't want to have that on if you're starting up in cold and dark, because as soon as you click the battery button, your co-pilot, the radio assist would actually start your IFR clearance immediately, and that can be a little distracting, and I want to be a little more in control of that. And more importantly, the radio assist will automatically call for pushback as soon as the APU is started and running, and that I definitely don't want to have happen. I want to be more in control of that because we're going to use a different add-on to actually control the pushback today. So that's off, verified. We're going to go ahead and get the battery turned on here. We'll let that initialize for just a second. I'm going to go ahead and just turn the environmental controls here up into a typical position. Now these systems are not fully modeled yet, so this is just kind of an exercise more than it is anything else. We'll go ahead and turn the second battery on. And I want to point out, right, I think I've mentioned this a couple times, external power says that it is currently available, which would suggest that there's a connection to the aircraft for external power, but that's not the case as best I can tell. That seems to be always automatically set to available. I mean, if you look outside, right, the GPU is sitting over here not connected to the aircraft. The gate, the jetway is not connected to the aircraft, so we're not getting power from there. So that's a little bit of a takeaway from reality. So one of the first things that we'll do, we'll go back in here now that we've got the battery turned on. That does give us radio communication with air traffic control. We'll go straight to ground services and immediately request our power supply.
Heathrow ground Airbus Delta, Alpha Hotel Alpha Mike, could you please send a ground power unit?
Airbus Delta, Alpha Hotel Alpha, Mike, a ground power unit is on the road.
And we'll immediately request the jetway connection as well.
Airbus Delta, Alpha Hotel Alpha Mike, could you please connect the jetway to the aircraft?
Airbus Delta, Alpha Hotel Alpha, Mike, the jetway is going to be connected.
So this is good. And now, right, feel like we've actually got some real power connected to the aircraft, so we can go ahead and turn on the power. We'll turn off our internal power to the aircraft. Go ahead and turn off the packs and the engine bleed. You don't really have to do this. I saw someone else do it, and honestly, I thought it was pretty cool. I said, hey, why not? You know, it doesn't really hurt anything, and kind of demonstrates some of the hard work that fly-by-wire simulations has put into this game to enable some of these systems. So a little bit of a show-off for them, if you will. With the external power on, we can start doing some of our checks up top here. We want to get the air data inertial reference system aligning immediately, because that's going to take, I think it's like 7 or 8 minutes to start. We'll scan down a panel here. We've got crew supply oxygen. We'll turn that on. We'll do our fire checks real quick. APU fire, engine 2 fire. Okay. We will not turn on the fuel pumps quite yet. Continue down here. Nothing else to change. We will turn on our navigation lights. Nothing else to set here right now. We'll turn on the integrated lights, the rear lights behind the labeling here on the overhead console. We're also going to turn on the dome light inside the cockpit, make it a little easier to see. And we'll go ahead and turn the seatbelt signs on. We'll get the no smoking in position and get the emergency exit lights armed now that we have power to the aircraft. Go down to the captain's seat and we'll start to adjust the displays, get those brightened up, the primary flight display and the navigation display. I'll run these a little brighter just for the sake of the video. Then I probably would fly with them set to. And then for the weather information, I usually back that brightness down to about the 12 o'clock position. Otherwise, sometimes the color intensity is too bright. It makes it too hard to read the navigation display. So from here, we'll look up to the MCP, and we'll turn on the rear lights to that console as well. We'll also brighten up the actual labels inside the display. Makes them a little easier to see. We'll go ahead and turn the flight director on for both the captain and the first officer. No other changes up top here at the moment. I'll scroll down We've got our standby altimeter. We need to brighten that up. Scan down our instruments here. ECAM page, we'll brighten those up for flight. Oh, not a zoom. That's pretty good. Likewise on the CDU, go ahead and brighten that up some. And then I do turn on the floodlights, so these here, let me change my zoom. Right, so our front panel floodlights, turn those on just a little bit. Not too bright. I'll probably turn those off once we get into flight. The center pedestal integrated lights, we'll turn those up so we can see the labeling. And then we've got the center pedestal floodlight. We'll turn that on for the time being as well. Just makes it easier to see in the cockpit, and it makes it easier probably for you to see as well for the video recording. Speed brake is retracted, flaps are retracted, the transponder and TCAS system are in standby mode. No other issues down here. We can see up on ECAM the inertial reference will be in alignment in 6 minutes. Seatbelts are on, no smoking are on, parking brake is set, TCAS is in standby. We get confirmation from the ECAM that the flaps are fully retracted, so that is good, and we have no warning here about the ground spoilers being armed or deployed. That looks good as well. We are ready to do our payload, so we get our payload situated for this flight. We did file a flight plan with SimBrief. I'm going to bring up my flight plan. So here's our flight plan information. London Heathrow to Frankfurt in the A320. I think this is actually the original. This is the other A320, not the actual Neo, because the weight that they have for the zero fuel weight is different than what Microsoft Flight Simulator has for this aircraft. We're just going to look past that for the time being. The information we need for payload is down here in our planned fuel. So block fuel total is 7,406 kilograms or 7.4 tons. And our reserve fuel comes from these two values right here. So it's going to be about 3.7 tons of reserve fuel. And I've probably got too much fuel in the plane, but I have a tendency to put on an additional hour, 60 minutes of fuel, and that comes in 2.2 tons on it, on its own. So that's where that's coming from. We'll take a look at the weight as well. So payload for weight. SimBrief has us with 172 passengers and a payload of 17.8 metric tons. So now we'll go back into the simulator and set up our payload assignment. Now we could call for the fuel truck, and that would also open up this payload screen, or we can just use the menus. And here we have display fuel as kilograms. This is a recent change into the flight simulator and very much a welcomed change. So I'm actually using the hybrid configuration where I'm getting my altitude in feet, but I'm doing all of my weight and fuel and so forth in kilograms, metric tons, in liters, but kilograms for myself. So currently fuel on board the aircraft is at 10,637 kilograms, which is too much. We're going to back that down, and I think our target was around 35%. So 35 puts us at 7,446, which is perfect. That's just above where we want to be, so no further changes there. And now we want to adjust our payload to be 17.8 metric tons. Currently for payload, right, we're sitting at 9,194, so definitely on the light side, so we'll push this up. Now, one thing as a result of one of the recent updates to Microsoft Flight Simulator is the payload slider does some weird things where it wants to jump. So notice that I'm on 54%. If I release it, it jumps up to 61.20. That's not where I wanted it to be. I have no idea why it's doing that. But from here, this gets us relatively close at 18.6. We're shooting for 17.8. So we're just going to manually adjust the weight because, again, another problem here is it's just distributing the weight evenly across the aircraft. which is not really working for our center of gravity. We're out of limit, and we need to be between 16% and 40%. So we have to make an adjustment here anyways. Easiest thing that I do, right, wrong, or indifferent, I just pull 1,000 out of the front, drop 1,000 into the back, right, and then I can tweak to kind of get my weight where I need it to be. That takes me to 18.2. All right, we'll take a little bit out here. So with this change, that puts me at 18,000, which is just over 17.8. That's good enough for our purposes. Also gives us a 22.19% center of gravity. We'll want to make note of that because we'll need to set our trimmable horizontal stabilizer. So at this point, payload is complete. We'll get this off the screen. Let's go down and look at our pitch trim control. So I'm going to zoom in here. So we said center of gravity at 22.19. So we'll go ahead and tweak that here. And 22.19 probably puts us right there. So we're probably about 0.9 up. And we can verify that by looking at the ECAM and the flight control. So 0.8 up actually. We'll make a note of that. Up 0.8. And then from here, with that information, I'm ready to go straight into the CDU and start working on our flight plan. So we'll clear the warning that was on the bottom in the scratch pad on the CDU. We'll go to Flight Management Guidance Computer. Make note that we are running with current AirAct data. I am using the Navigraph Beta add-on for Microsoft Flight Simulator to give us the latest navigation data. So from here, we're going to go straight to the init page. And our flight number today is going to be 1024. We've got another warning here. Clear that. So 1024, drop that into our flight number. Cost index from the flight plan, I believe that was an 8. All right, it's an 8. And cruising altitude was 350, so flight level 350. 350, excellent. You can see here London to Frankfurt. We'll go to page 2. We did our payload, so we'll look again at our fuel and see fuel on board is 7,440 kilograms. So for block fuel, we'll drop in 7.4. Right, and for our zero fuel weight and zero fuel weight center of gravity, we'll just click the right select button here and pull these numbers will appear on the scratch pad, and then we just drop them right in. And then the last thing we noted was our reserve fuel, 3.7. Put that up there into route reserve. 50% of our fuel is reserve. And that's it. That's all I do on this screen, right, wrong, or indifferent. Probably some more things that you could set here, but I don't currently do that. From here, we'll take a look again at our flight plan. Flight plan had us departing runway 27 right using the Det2F SID with a Det waypoint transition. And we need to see if, based on the weather at the airport, if we're going to be assigned a runway 27 right. And we'll get that by filing our IFR. So if we go back in here, we'll bring up the air traffic control, go back to clearance, and go ahead and request our IFR clearance.
Heathrow ground, Airbus Delta, Alpha Hotel Alpha.
Airbus Hotel Alpha, Mike readback is correct. Contact ground on 121.855 when ready to taxi.
Alright, well this is good. So we get confirmation that our takeoff runway is in fact 27 right. Great. Our assigned altitude for our initial climb is 10,000 feet. We get our departure frequency as well as our squawk code 0641. But I want to point out one other thing. Notice how air traffic control is referring to us rather than using our flight number, right? Our flight number, which is typically our call sign. They're using the tail number of the aircraft. Now, this only recently changed as a result of the last update to Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I've never seen this before. So this is a little bit unusual. We're being called by our tail number, but I point this out to you because you'll notice as soon as we take off and we get our first handoff from air traffic control, they'll stop referring to us by the tail number, and all of a sudden they'll start to use our flight number. So we'll become Airbus 1024, which is what I would expect right now, but it's not happening. It's the only reason I really draw your attention to that. Alright, so we did confirm that our flight plan assigned runway is correct. So if we go back here, we'll get this off the screen. If we look at our flight plan, we're already set for 27 right, so there's no changes that need to be made there. Now we can go straight into performance. Our transition altitude, we need to pull from the airport information for our SID. If I bring up the SID and Navigraph, so if you look here at Navigraph, I've got the SID for our departure. We said DET 2F, here it is. Transition altitude is 6,000 feet, so we're pulling that right off of this chart. Go back into the aircraft and we'll go ahead and set that. No change to thrust reduction. This is standard 1,500 feet above the runway. We will have a flaps 1 takeoff today, and for the trimmable horizontal stabilizer, we noted that it was up 0.8. You can add this in. This typically was automatically added in some of the other Airbus aircraft that I've flown. It's not here. We can just manually set it. It really doesn't matter. You can ignore this as well. And then put that up here in flaps THS. Flex temp 20 is no good. I've worked out how to calculate this temperature if we have the FCOM data and the performance data for the aircraft, but we've got lots of runway, and a safe bet is probably 49 degrees most times, unless you've got some other additional unusual characteristics or short runway or other things where you're going to need a full power takeoff. If you've got lots of runway, 49 is probably a safe bet, and typically what I'm going with, you know, without going through the calculation process. So this looks good. With these changes in place, we need to also check to see if the our speed tape assigned V1, rotate, and V2 have changed. Just click on those buttons and you'll see that the number has changed. So we've got 133 for V1, 138 for our rotate, and then 142 for our V2 speed. So now those are updated. We're done with the flight management computer configuration. At this point, we should be ready to start firing up the APU. So from here, we'll go up top, go ahead and hit our APU master switch, go back down to the ECAM, turn off the fuel page so that we can see the APU page. And what we're waiting for is for this page to initialize and get our little indicator here that says flap open. And once I see the flap open, we can go ahead and start the APU. Alright, look up top, start up the APU. Go ahead and turn our probe window heat on now as well, and we'll get our fuel pumps turned on. Cabin is probably already being boarded at this point. We don't have ground services really to simulate the load of passengers, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on the galley cabin and the commercial power to the cabin. Nothing else to do up here at the moment. We'll verify our squawk code did get set. We said it was 0641. 0641 is set here in our transponder. The simulator automatically turned it on for us, but our TCAS is still in standby, which is okay. APU is continuing to start up. Alright, and APU is initialized. The page automatically turned off for us. So now we can go back up top here and go ahead and turn on our APU bleed. We'll need that for the start of the engines. We can also start conditioning the aircraft. And with the APU on, we should be getting power from the APU at this point. So we can turn off external power. Take a quick look outside again. I don't know why this happened, but notice that the GPU and the jetway have disconnected from the aircraft. I'm not sure what mechanism triggers their automatic disconnect, but I really don't like that. I would like to be more in control of when the GPU disconnects and when the jetway goes away. So I think that's a bug. That's a problem. Regardless, we're about ready to do pushback, and I need to bring up a new add-on I have from FS to Crew, Pushback Express, because the pushback built into the Microsoft Flight Simulator is woefully inadequate. Right? It's your basic FSX pushback, only now I interact with ATC to tell the tug which way to turn. Just a bit cumbersome and slow. Now with Pushback Express inside of Microsoft Flight Simulator, I'm able to control when the tug turns, how much it turns, how fast, how slow it goes back with the plane. And more fun, right? I get to voice control it, so I can actually interact with the ground crew and give them some verbal cues on when we're ready to depart. So this is a nice and welcomed add-on to Microsoft Flight Simulator, and just will greatly improve your experience with pushback, in my opinion. That being said, so we have the APU on. We should be ready to start our pushback. Yes, we should be ready. One thing that we're going to need to do first, in fact, let me give the grounds crew a heads up. So we'll go down here and simulate the voice commands. Now, I'm relatively new to this add-on. I really do like it, but I need to look at my little cheat sheet here on how to communicate with them. So we're in the aircraft. We've got a hotkey assigned for the communication, for the voice control to the ground crew. I'm going to go ahead and try that out now, and we'll see if that works. Flight deck to ground.
Go ahead, flight deck.
We will be ready shortly. We will be ready shortly.
Okay, I will hold.
So it can be a little sensitive on the communication for those verbal cues, so they're holding for us. I wanted to make sure that we are set for starting the engine, so we'll go down here. We're going to put the engine select button here into ignition start. We would take a look at our hydraulics information. So they've got an add-on here, or they've got another verbal cue that you can give to them. Hydraulic pressure is already currently good. The hydraulic system's already pressurized, so we don't really need to make any changes there, but in working with the ground crew, you could do flight deck to ground.
Go ahead, flight deck.
Confirm all ground checks complete, and we're cleared to pressurize the hydraulics.
All ground checks are complete, and you are clear to pressurize the hydraulics.
And you get that level of interaction, which is pretty cool. But nothing to do here, no modeling, nothing I need to change or manipulate about the hydraulic system. It should all be active. Unfortunately, the hydraulic ECAM pages are not active yet, so there's nothing to show on that front either. So with that, before we start our pushback, we need to go to ATC and go ahead and request our taxi clearance.
Heathrow ground, Airbus Delta, Alpha Hotel Alpha Mike with India Airbus Hotel Alpha Mike.
Alright, and with that, we have our taxi clearance, so we would be ready to start our pushback. One thing that we want to look at, though, is I need to figure out where I am at the airport as far as the gate and how I'm going to navigate those taxiways to the runway. And for that, I rely on Navigraph. So I want to bring up a picture here of the airport. So here we are at London Heathrow, parked at Terminal 2A, here at the gate, gate 223. And our taxi guidance was taxiway B. So it's directly behind us here, right? Taxiway B. Make sure you can see this. Taxiway B down to L27. So we're going to go around the corner. We've got this L27. We'll jump over here to A. Then from A up here to M. So M's this diagonal. And then from M, it wants us to cross over L23, L22 onto, it says A2, A1. But basically, I think this is going to be a straight shot. We're going to get lined up right here with A1. At the hold short line for runway 27 right. So that's our game plan. So now we are ready for pushback. Again, let me bring up my little cheat here. And we'll go ahead and get out in position because we'll want to monitor and control the pushback of the tug. We actually steer the tug using the flight stick and the rudder control. This is quite nice. Alright, now we're ready. Let me get the ATC off the screen. Rain looks like it's picked up here a little bit. Flight deck to ground.
Go ahead, flight deck.
We are ready for pushback and engine start.
Roger. Release the parking brakes, please.
Brakes released.
Pushing back.
So a nice little visual there. If you look in the cockpit, you can see it's really easy to see the captain and first officer with the cockpit lights turned on as they are currently. I found out recently that this is a normal procedure because it makes it easier for the grounds crew to actually see and interact with the pilot and first officer, or with the captain and first officer, I should say. I don't like the positioning of the tug. Notice that it's coming out offset to the aircraft, and then it'll magically jump over and get proper alignment. So here we've started our pushback, and we could actually start an engine. So I'm going to go ahead and hop in the aircraft quickly and go down here, engine 2 start. We'll let that get going, and then we'll jump back out here. We should really be monitoring the engine startup, but since we need to control the tug, we're going to go back out and get ready to turn the tug so we can get onto this taxiway. And I'm going to start the turn now, and there it goes. Responds to my control. No more do I have to interact with air traffic control and tell the tug to steer the plane left or right. I can just do it myself. And it gives you a little more finite control, so I can change the angle of the pushback from the tug. So you have full control over the pushback, which I do really enjoy. Likewise, I can just use my voice command to stop the pushback when I'm ready. Stop pushback.
Pushback complete. Set parking brakes, please.
Brake set.
Roger. Okay, the tow bar is disconnected and the equipment is clear. We will see you on the left side with the pin.
Thanks, and you can disconnect and go to hand signals.
Thanks. Have a good flight. See you later.
Now, one thing that happens there periodically is notice that that tug like vanished. Normally it just kind of backs away from the aircraft and goes back into position, but I have noticed on a couple of occasions that it does kind of magically disappear that way. Alright, well, with pushback complete, we can get rid of this little add-on. It is an outstanding product. I am so glad to have Pushback Express. Go back into the aircraft and take a look at our eCam page and our Engine 2 startup. Looks good. Everything is in the green. We don't have any warnings, no yellow or red, so that looks fine. Engine 1 startup. This time we'll monitor the actual engine startup. So we have N2 rotation up to about 20-25%. We got ignition, fuel flow, exhaust gas temperature rising, so looks like a good start for engine 1. I'm looking up here at the MCP. We did get our initial altitudes given to us at 10,000 feet, so I'm just going to dial that in. Continuing to watch engine 1 startup. Alright, engine 1 startup is complete. Looks to be stabilized. We'll go up top here now. We'll turn our bleed pressure on for engine 1 and engine 2 to the packs. Turn our APU bleed off. Oh, and I forgot to turn on my beacon lights. Darn it. You need to turn your beacon lights on before you do your pushback and start up of the engines. Alright, and we'll lose the APU, so that's off now. Okay. Go down here, we'll get prepped for takeoff, so we're going to go to flaps 1. We'll arm the spoiler. We'll set max auto brakes for rejected takeoff. We're going to do a flight control check. Left and right aileron, up and down elevator, and then rudder control. All check out. Pitch trim is still set. That is good. I'll go down here to weather. We do have overcast skies and rain, so predictive wind shear on. Put our weather here over to 1. Ooh, it does not look pretty out there. Look at that. Major clouds. The weather is not very nice right now. But here's what I was talking about. So look, this color is pretty intense, but it would be even more intense, right, if this was up to full the way it was, and it could make it very difficult to actually read the navigation display. That's why we put it to 12 o'clock. Looks better. We've got to do a test takeoff config, and we also need to go up here and notify the grounds crew. We're getting ready to go. Now we'll click takeoff config. Everything is normal. Looks good. Go ahead and turn our constraint up here on the navigation display. So that's it. We should be about ready to taxi. We're going to do a brake check as we start to roll out, but before we taxi, it's also important that we turn on our taxi lights, so we'll do that. I'll go ahead and put the strobe in auto at the time being as well. Now we're ready to taxi. So parking brake off, we'll start our taxi roll. Do a quick brake check. Brake check. Brakes are good. Get the external camera set to where we want it to be to help with taxi and just visualizing where we are at times. I like that there has been some fine-tuning done with the amount of power required to taxi the aircraft. It's now much easier. I don't have to keep the throttles up to around 30-40% in order to move around the airport. Even at virtually no throttle, almost idle, I'm still picking up a little bit of speed. Probably at this point also, since we're no longer dealing with the grounds crew, I want to go up here and actually turn off the dome light in the cockpit. There we go. Go back down here so we can see what we're doing. One thing that I find useful is I track along with Navigraph as well during the taxi process so I can kind of see where I am. So we're still on taxiway B, alright, making her up. We're going to go around this one corner, which should be this corner right here. Slow down here just a little bit, going a little fast. Then we're going to have this first right-hand turn. This is going to be the L27 taxiway. Can't really see that here anywhere. We're losing a little too much speed. Good visual ground detail. I love the vehicles, the lights on with the vehicles. Building textures all look really good. Ground and the lighting, especially considering these weather conditions, looks good as well. So it's a little hard to read that sign. We are on A, but we want to go over here to the right. This is going to be M. And make our way here down to M. I love the windshield effects of the raindrops. So we just got a hold.
Position Airbus Hotel Alpha Mike.
I'm not sure what other traffic they're referring to. They just want to mess with me. I've got nobody. There's probably somebody behind us. I got nothing. Alright, air traffic control. Alright, so we're just going to press on. They've got us holding for some imaginary vehicle. So we're continuing down taxiway M. We'll have a turn up here where we'll be crossing over allegedly L23, L22 to A1, where we'll hold short for runway 27 right and get our clearance for takeoff. Alright, get ourselves situated here, get our takeoff lights turned on, get our strobe turned on. We are right next to the runway. Give grounds crew a heads up, or not grounds crew, give the cabin crew a heads up. Everything else looks good up here. We probably could have turned on TCAS, at least a TA for our taxi. Now we'll go ahead and set it for TARA. That should be ready to go. We are prepped for takeoff. Yep, yep, auto brakes are still set, so they got rid of that bug as well. So all we need now is clearance.
Heathrow Tower, Airbus Delta, Alpha Hotel Alpha Mike ready to go runway 27 right IFR to Foxtrot Romeo Alpha November Kilo Foxtrot Uniform Romeo Tango Mike Alpha India November.
Airbus Delta, Alpha Hotel Alpha, Mike cleared for takeoff runway 27 right.
Cleared for takeoff runway 27 right Airbus Delta, Alpha Hotel Alpha Mike.
Alright, we have our takeoff clearance. Get ourselves into position. Now this is kind of cool here. Look how we've got a little hill here, and the plane actually wants a little more power to get up this hill. I don't know if that's my imagination or if that's really built into the simulator, but I like it. It's pretty cool. 'Cause I'm having to give it a lot more power than I typically would to start my taxi roll. Alright, so we're in position. We're going to go ahead and do our chrono. Start it up. We'll go to 50% power here. Let that stabilize. Alright, looks pretty good. We'll go up to flex. Nope, too much. There we go. Getting a lot of pull to the left. Trying to watch the FMA. The throttle controls are really sensitive. 80 knots. Whoa. All over the place here. Whoa. A lot of push and pulling going on. Rotate. Whoa. Positive rate of climb. Gear up. Woo. What is going on down here? That was really sensitive.
Airbus Hotel Alpha Mike contact London Center on 118.475.
Alright, we are at thrust reduction altitude. Pull the nose down, let the plane start to speed up. I heard the handoff, I'm ignoring it for the moment. Flaps retract.
Lufthansa 1024 acknowledge last transmission.
Plane speeding up. Acknowledge our handoff.
118.475 for Lufthansa 1024.
We'll engage the autopilot. At this point, I'm going to also turn on the radio communication assist.
London Center, Lufthansa 1024 is at 3,400 feet, climbing 10,000 feet. Lufthansa 1024 London Center, continue as planned. QNH 29.62.
Wow, 29.62, seriously? Now that's something that I completely forgot to do. That was bad on me. We should have got our ATS our ATIS weather report. I did not do that. Otherwise, I would have had the correct barometric pressure assigned. So definitely, that's a big goof on my part. So we're up in the air. We're going to go up here, and we've got the gear retracted. Turn the our takeoff and taxi lights off. Go down here and disarm the spoiler. Continue to monitor our climb up to 10,000 feet, our initial altitude. Take a look at the checklist. One of the challenges there in keeping the center line on the runway is the throttle controls in the Airbus are really touchy. And I'm using a Logitech Extreme 3D Pro flight stick, and that Z-axis control, the throttle just wants to jump around a bit, so you got to really make sure that you get it into that flex detente position rather than toga or not being quite up to that position. So that can be challenging at times, as well as trying to watch what I'm doing. So I want to point out, right, I said that they were calling us... They were calling us by our tail number, and now we're being called by our flight number. So that's interesting. Climb to 210. So we'll get that set. Take a look here. We're just about to cross through 10,000 feet, so we can go up and turn our landing lights off. Go ahead and retract those as well. Not much to see outside at all. Definitely in the pea soup here. – 10,000 feet also, we'll go up and turn off the seatbelt signs. 6,000 feet was our transition altitude, so we can go to standard barometric pressure for right now. And we'll increase the range on our navigation display. It doesn't look like the weather's going to get any better ahead of us at the moment. I do like the Fly Live Studios overlay and add-on to OBS. Oh, check it out. I love when we break above the clouds. That looks so good. Oh, hello. Got some icing going on. Better hop into the aircraft here. Let's go ahead and get our wing and engine anti-ice turned on. come on now, that is so cool. That is incredible cloud work. Who are these haters of the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020? Folks, go upgrade your computers. Stop your whining. This thing is awesome. Even with shitty jetliners. But that's just a temporary state. Oh, come on. Visually, that's so crazy good. Oh, getting ready to pass through 18,000 feet. Climbing up to a cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. ECAM does show that we have both engine and wing anti-ice on. No other warnings or issues. We are not flying with any failures, only because the modeling's not quite detailed enough that I'm really comfortable flying with failures. Spot check up top. I think everything is set. No issues. The FMA has altitude star, getting ready to engage 21,000 feet.
Lufthansa 1024 climb and maintain flight level 270. Climb and maintain flight level 270 Lufthansa 1024.
So really, this is the easiest part of the flight. Continuing our climb up to our cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. Not a lot to do right now other than, quick spot check of the ECAM pages on occasion, looking at fuel, but enjoy the sights outside. Looks like we're climbing up into some of the second layer of clouds, probably the third layer of clouds. Still visually quite impressive with the, the shading, the strong cloud shading at the top, and the looking like the pillowy, soft cloud deck below us. And look at the cloud transition, right? You break through some of this dense gray cover into an open area, and then look at these cloud plumes. It's so realistic looking. I'm like a kid on Christmas morning. This is really just so stunning visually. I didn't experience anything like this, even with all the various cloud layer add-ons for FSX or X-Plane. That's really cool. Well, that's our last climb guidance from air traffic control up to our cruise altitude of 35,000 feet. That's pretty much it for this first part of our trip from London Heathrow International Airport to Frankfurt Airport. We're going to continue our climb up here to 35,000 feet, continue along our way, and when I get a little closer to Frankfurt, we'll come back and capture the descent and approach into Frankfurt Airport. I do appreciate you watching this video. If you like this video, please click the thumbs up. I do appreciate it. And if you want to see more of this content, click the subscribe button. I'm going to try and get more of these videos going here in the future, especially now that I've got OBS worked out, I think a little bit better. And definitely the frame rate is far improved and should make for more entertaining viewing of some of these flights. I'm Liam Locke. This is Aircraft Adventures, and we will see you for part 2 for our arrival into Frankfurt International Airport. Thank you. Bye.